What is hedonism? Hedonism is a broad category of philosophical thought that encompasses any system that places pleasure as being the intrinsic good or the only thing that is considered good by itself, independent of all other things. Hedonism is the philosophical principle that places pleasure and gratification as the intrinsic good. In other words, pleasure and gratification are the only things that can be deemed good by themselves, independent of all other things. There are three distinct types of hedonism, differentiated by proponents of the doctrine that enjoyment is good. First is physiological hedonism. It means pleasure is the solitary possible purpose of desire or pursuit. This may be held on observational basis or be thought to be dictated by the significance of desire. Second, is the evaluative hedonism. It means that pleasure is what we are supposed to desire and pursue. And lastly, the third, the rationalizing hedonism. Um, it means that pleasure is the only object that makes a pursuit sensible. Next is the paradox of hedonism.
So, the paradox of hedonism refers to a range of arguments purporting to show that the pursuit of pleasure for its own sake is either practically or logically self-defeating. So, a number of philosophers have recognized this idea as describing a real and important phenomenon, and a potentially serious challenge for hedonistic version of ethical theories such as egoism and utilitarianism. So, the two main accounts of the paradox consider a practical rather than a logical challenge. So, the distinction between happiness or pleasure and the satisfaction of desire is necessary to avoid circulating reasoning and the object of desire. So, another thing is the paradox of hedonism is also called as the pleasure paradox. This refers to the practical difficulties encountered in the pursuit of pleasure and happiness. So for the hedonist, constant pleasure seeking may not yield the most actual pleasure or happiness in the long run or even in the short run. So when consciously pursuing pleasure interferes with experiencing it. So the utilitarian philosopher Henry Sidgwick was first to note in the methods of ethics that the paradox of hedonism that pleasure cannot be acquired directly. So various variations on this theme appear in the realms of ethics, philosophy, psychology, and economics.
So next is the pleasure principle.
Pleasure principle. It is the driving force of the id. In other words, the pleasure principle strives to fulfill our most basic and primitive urges, such as hunger, thirst, anger, and sex. When these are not met, the result is a state of anxiety or tension. It is also referred to as the pleasure-pain principle. This motivating force helps drive behavior, but it also wants instant satisfaction.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to report the sample cases for hedonism. So I'm going to report 3 sample cases. First is indulgent eating. So we humans tend to escape pain through eating. Example is sweetness, sweets or dessert. Second is excessive drinking to escape the stress and the pain of the outside world. We tend to resort on alcoholic beverages, and sometimes wine. Third is sex, the highest form of pleasure known to man, in which we have the example of one night stand, in which we tend to have sex with other people without feelings, just for sex, just to release the pain, the stress, and the sufferings we have in the form of sex. So, so these are the examples of hedonism and some pleasures known to man.